Okay, so check this out. We've got someone's research notes on longevity, but it's not the usual stuff. It's like next level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Lev Nemotin, and this guy, he goes deep.
I like it already. And the best part is we have his resume, too, which is fascinating in itself.
Right, so it's like we're tracing his line of thinking as he goes, which is, unusual to say the least.
Yeah, totally unique to get this deep dive.
And his starting point is what got me. He asks, what's the shortest lifespan humans would need to, keep society running? Not just like surviving, but actually like making progress.
I mean, I've never even considered that. Who thinks to ask that question?
I know, right?
And then to actually try to find an answer.
Exactly. And get this, he actually uses some kind of AI, a forecasting model, to really analyze this.
Wow.
It wasn't just him like, pondering in the shower or whatever.
No, this is serious computational analysis.
Yeah, exactly. And his gut feeling was 40 years, roughly 2 generations.
Okay.
And the AI agreed. I know, right? Highlighting how crucial that time frame is for raising kids, passing down knowledge, apprenticeships. All that goes into a complex society.
Yeah, not just like surviving, but actually maintaining this complex structure we've got going on.
Totally.
Which, now that you mention it, 40 years really makes sense.
Yeah.
Think about it. Apprenticeships, family businesses, even just mastering craft.
It's like there's a scientific basis for the apprentice system. It's not just tradition. It's like practically hardwired into how long it takes to pass on these complex skills.
It seems that way. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Nemotin's AI model throws in a bit of a curveball. It asks, what happens if people live too long?
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Too much of a good thing.
Right.
The AI model flagged potential downsides, like stagnation,
Oh, interesting.
resource scarcity. Imagine competing for jobs for resources with people a century older than you.
Whoa. Okay, that took a turn.
Right.
Not so rosy now.
Exactly. So we've got this fascinating balance here. A minimum lifespan to keep society functioning, but then a potential upper limit where things could go, well, a little sideways.
And this is all just from his first question. He then dives into historical data on average lifespans throughout history. And that's where you see how he operates, how his brain works.
And that's where his background in nuclear engineering really shines through. He doesn't just look at raw data. He applies this complex system analysis, the kind used to predict, reactor behavior.
Okay, that's what I love about these deep dives. We're not just getting the what, we're getting the how and the why behind someone's thinking.
And what's amazing is how much he gets out of just looking at this historical data.
I know, right? It's like he knows where to look.
Definitely.
It's like he's got this internal radar for the most important data points.
For sure, for sure.
And for me, the most striking thing was how stable average lifespans were for centuries.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking 50 to 60 years. Like, that was it.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a really long time, even with, differences between regions. But still,
Right.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It really makes you think about, what it meant to live in those times.
Yeah. Like, even if you were lucky enough to hit that average, did it even feel like a long life back then?
It's total head trip.
Yeah.
Did their whole perception of time change along with the times?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we think about what a long life is now.
Right. And he's got all these details about the Black Death and how food supplies played a role. It's not just numbers. It's like a story.
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is. And there's this one key thing he picks up on, the huge jump in longevity. It's surprisingly recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, post-1850s.
Really?
That's when things really took off.
Wow.
And that totally tracks with advancements in, healthcare, sanitation.
Basics.
Exactly. Suddenly living longer makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder, what's going to be the defining factor, for our generation? What's going to be the thing that,
Changes the game again.
Exactly.
And that actually brings me to something else that's pretty wild, Nemotin's background.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
So this isn't just some, armchair historian theorizing about lifespans. This is a guy who spent decades in nuclear engineering.
Get out.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know. And we're not talking about some, entry-level stuff either.
Yeah, what are we talking about here?
We're talking Brookhaven National Lab,
Okay.
international projects on reactor safety,
Wow.
even, nuclear material protection.
That's serious business.
Serious stuff. If this guy says there's a potential meltdown in, the lifespan department,
Yeah.
I am listening,
Exactly. And you think about the kind of mind that goes into that kind of work.
Yeah, I know, right?
Analyzing those systems, assessing the risks, thinking about the impact, generations down the line.
It's like he's taken that exact same framework and applying it to society and lifespan.
It's brilliant.
It adds a whole other layer to his research, right?
Absolutely.
It's like he's wired to think about those big long-term consequences.
100%.
It makes you wonder, does that background, make him more worried about those downsides of extreme longevity we talked about?
Right. Like, does he see those potential problems more clearly because of that work?
Or does it give him like a unique perspective,
Maybe he sees ways to navigate those challenges that we haven't even thought of yet.
Right. It's a total mind bender. And speaking of mind bending, remember that initial question about the minimum lifespan? Well, he also goes for the maximum.
Oh, he goes there.
He goes there. And that's where things get really, really interesting. He doesn't really lay it all out there, all the downsides of maximum lifespan.
Right.
But he mentions the big ones like overpopulation, resources being stretched thin, even fundamental changes to how society works.
Yeah, it really makes you think, what would the world even look like?
Exactly. But it wasn't the concerns that got me. It was more his tone.
Oh, really?
It wasn't, all doom and gloom.
Right.
More like, interesting.
He's just curious.
Yeah. He sees the potential problems, but he's even more interested in what we don't know yet.
Which, let's be real, is where it gets really exciting.
Exactly. And it's like what that AI was pointing out before, massive potential for things to go a bit haywire if we're all living way longer.
Oh, yeah.
We're not just talking about blowing out more birthday candles here. This is a totally different way of understanding everything.
Absolutely. What does work even mean in that world? What about, retirement?
Right. Or even death. I mean, it changes the whole game, doesn't it?
Completely. And that's what I want you, the listener, to really think about.
Yes.
Picture a world where everyone's got the potential to live to 150, 200 years old, even longer, and stay healthy. What would you do at that time? What would be the trade-off?
Right. Because there's always a trade-off.
There's always a trade-off. Would you even want that?
Right. It's a big question.
And really makes you think, what does it mean to be human?
It does. We started with how long do we need to live? And now it's how long should we live?
And what happens to everything else if we change that equation?
That's a whole other level.
Or I think we've done it again, another amazing deep dive. We've explored the minimum lifespan, the potential chaos of extreme longevity.
All thanks to Lev Nemotin and his unique brain.
Definitely unique.
But seriously, this deep dive, it's given us, and hopefully you listening, a whole new way to think about not just longevity, but what it means to be human.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll wrap it up for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.